The scorching heat of the Mesopotamian plains. From those ancient clay tablets comes a haunting command. Let a human be created, one who can carry the burden of the gods. Let mankind be taught the labours of the world. These are not words of fiction, but lines from the Epic of Atrahasis, written thousands of years ago. It speaks of a time when humanity's role was to serve, to labour, and perhaps to inherit knowledge not entirely of this earth. Across the earlier civilizations, stories appear of gods and strange beings who gave mankind the foundations of life. In Mesopotamia, Enki, the god of wisdom, was said to grant music, law, agriculture, and the principles of society itself. In Babylon, there was Oannes, an extraordinary figure described as half man, half fish, who emerged from the sea to teach every art and science. And in the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, angels cast down from heaven, shared forbidden knowledge with mortals, changing the course of humanity forever. Even far from these lands, deep in the Amazon rainforest, tribes preserved tales of a figure clad in gleaming garments who came from the sky with thunder and light. He carried tools of power, shared wisdom of medicine and farming, and then vanished back into the heavens. Were these simply myths? Ways for ancient people to explain the sudden rise of civilization? Or were they fragments of memory, passed down from encounters with visitors no one could fully understand? Legends like these repeat across the world, separated by oceans and centuries, yet strangely similar. Each describes beings descending from the sky, luminous and powerful, who transformed human life with their knowledge. To believers, these were no gods of imagination, but actual visitors, star teachers, perhaps the first contact between humanity and other worlds. In Sumerian hymns, Enki is praised as the master of arts and crafts, the judge of all things, the god who structured the world by bestowing upon mankind the sacred me, divine powers that included ritual, law, trade, and the skills that built civilization. Archaeologists see this as a metaphor, a poetic way of describing human progress. But others ask, why did so many cultures, independent of each other, tell the same kind of story? Why did so many speak of gods who descended from above, bearing knowledge, technology, even flying chariots? In India, the ancient epics Ramayana and Mahabharata describe sages and divine beings teaching humans the highest skills. Vishvamitra instructed warriors in advanced combat, Krishna guided humanity in the duties of life, and masters like Drona revealed celestial weapons. But the most astonishing detail lies in the accounts of the Vimanas, flying chariots capable of soaring across the skies, ascending and descending at will, glowing with brilliance. One was said to be the Pushpaka Vimana, adorned with precious stones and gold, able to travel vast distances in moments. To traditional historians, these stories were metaphors for divine power, yet others argue that such detailed descriptions were not metaphorical at all, but memories of technology. Machines that once existed, now lost, and remembered only as myth. If these were only symbols, why describe them with such mechanical precision? Soaring, landing, hovering, travelling to distant realms? Far from India, in the heart of the Brazilian Amazon, the Kayapo people tell of Bep Kororoti, a figure who descended amid storms of thunder and blinding light. His garments shone like metal, his staff unleashed energy, and his presence struck both fear and awe. In time, he lived among them, teaching medicine, farming, hunting, and building. When his mission was complete, he rose once more into the skies, disappearing in a flash of brilliance. To anthropologists, this is a cultural myth. To others, it is a direct description of an encounter with something not human, a man in a suit, a device of power, a departure in a craft of fire. Even the icy north holds echoes of the same story. Among the Inuit and other peoples of Alaska and Canada, legends speak of fiery sleds or chariots descending from the heavens, glowing in silence before vanishing. One tale recalls a luminous kayak that lit up the tundra as if day, from which emerged a tall figure with pale skin, radiant eyes, and a voice that spoke without a mouth. Another tells of a shining visitor who taught ancestors how to read the stars, preserve food, and maintain harmony with the world before returning to the sky in a canoe of light. To modern ears, these tales sound strikingly close to reports of UFOs, except these accounts were told long before the modern age. In Ireland, the ancient Book of Invasions tells of the Tuatha De Danann, who arrived in dark clouds that covered the land for 3 days. They were tall, beautiful, radiant, carrying magical objects and immense knowledge. They conquered, but they also taught poetry, music, metalwork, medicine, and law. Their powers included control of weather, shape-shifting, healing, and feats impossible for humans. When defeated by later peoples, they retreated underground, becoming the hidden folk of Irish legend. Were they gods, civilizers, or perhaps advanced beings mistaken for deities? In West Africa, the Dogon people of Mali tell of the Nomo, fish-like beings who descended from the sky to bring order to the world. Their myths also mention Sirius B, a companion to the star Sirius, invisible to the naked eye and unknown to science until the 19th century. How could the Dogon have known of it? Some argue the knowledge came from later contact with outsiders, but others believe it points to something more, that the Nomo were real visitors from another system, perhaps even Sirius itself, who revealed truths the Dogon preserved in myth. The apocryphal Book of Enoch speaks of the Watchers, 200 angels who descended to earth against the will of God. They taught metallurgy, weapon making, astrology, and magic. But their gifts led to corruption, violence, and the fall of humankind. To some, this is an allegory of forbidden knowledge, of progress gained too quickly. To others, it is yet another story of outsiders who interfered with humanity, advancing us at a cost. Even in the Australian outback, cave paintings in the Kimberley region depict the Wangina, beings with white faces, large dark eyes and halos of light. Aboriginal belief says these are not mere images, but sacred presences that still dwell in the land. They are remembered as the creators of Earth, who shaped plants, animals and humankind before merging with the stones themselves. Their painted forms are haunting, eerily similar to modern depictions of alien visitors. And across North America, the Lakota, Dakota, Ojibwe and Hopi tribes preserve legends of the Star People. Tall, radiant beings with pale, glowing skin, long silver hair or forms made of light itself. They descended from the stars to share wisdom, linked with constellations like the Pleiades. Sometimes they appeared human to interact with mortals. Other times they were ethereal, shimmering like shadows of gold drifting in the wind. Were these spiritual visions or memories of real encounters now wrapped in myth? From Mesopotamia to India, from the frozen Arctic to the deserts of Australia, from the rainforests of the Amazon to the tribes of Africa and North America, the same pattern repeats. Beings from the sky, luminous and powerful, who came to teach, to shape, and then to vanish. Myths, perhaps, or perhaps fragments of a history far stranger than we imagine. In Babylon, a golden city of the ancient world, myths flourished that shaped the destiny of later religions. The Tower of Babel explained why humanity spoke in many tongues, but another legend, lesser known, spoke of Oannes, a mysterious being who rose each day from the sea to teach mankind. According to the historian Berossus, Oannes had the body of a fish, but the head of a man. By day he walked among the people, sharing knowledge of writing, mathematics, agriculture, and law. At night he returned to the waters of the Persian Gulf. To the Babylonians, Oannes was the bringer of civilization itself. To modern eyes, he raises questions. Was he only a symbol of knowledge? Or could he have been something more? An amphibious visitor, remembered as half man, half creature, because no other description was possible. Even great thinkers of the modern age pondered such myths. The astrophysicist Carl Sagan once suggested that ancient stories might have been inspired by real encounters with intelligences from beyond. He remained skeptical, but he also warned against dismissing the possibility too easily. Behind the poetry of myth, he believed, there may lie fragments of truth. Far from Babylon, along the Nile, ancient Egypt rose with its own gods and mysteries. Like Mesopotamia, it built monumental structures, ziggurats in one land, pyramids in the other. Both civilizations worshipped many gods, often tied to natural forces, and both were ruled by divine kings. In Egypt, Thoth, the ibis-headed god, was said to have invented writing and conveyed wisdom. Osiris, the green-skinned ruler of the underworld, taught agriculture, granted laws, and showed humankind how to live in order and justice. For believers in ancient contact, these figures mirror the Sumerian teachers, suggesting a shared source, perhaps the same visitors remembered under different names. The mainstream view, of course, is different. Archaeologists point to cultural exchange, migration, and human creativity. They argue that the similarities between Mesopotamia and Egypt were not the result of alien intervention, but of humanity's own genius. And yet the parallels are striking enough to keep the debate alive. From these ancient lands also comes the legend of Etana, a mortal king who ascended into the sky. In the Akkadian tale, Etana sought a magical plant to grant fertility and was carried upward by a giant eagle sent by the gods. As he rose higher, he described the earth shrinking beneath him, the sea looking like a canal, the land reduced to a hill. His words echo the perspective of someone seeing Earth from great altitude. Was it only imagination, a poetic flourish? Or was it the record of a vision, of a flight unlike anything known in his time? For some, this story hints at a deeper truth. Perhaps the people of Mesopotamia had seen something, machines, ships, journeys beyond the ground, that they could only describe in mythic form. To call such vessels eagles or chariots of fire was the only language they had. It is here that the ancient astronaut theory grows boldest. According to this idea, beings called the Anunnaki descended to Earth nearly 500,000 years ago. They came not as gods of imagination, but as travelers from a distant planet. They founded cities in Mesopotamia, altered the destiny of humankind, and even created mankind itself. Not as equals, but as a workforce. These beings, the theory claims, needed gold, not for wealth, but to repair the atmosphere of their own world, a planet called Nibiru. For millennia, they extracted resources, guided kings, and shaped empires until their mission was complete. Then some 4,000 years ago, they departed. Nibiru, according to the legend, is not a myth, but a real planet. Its orbit is said to be vast and elongated, circling the sun once every 3,600 years. Each time it approached the inner solar system, groups of Anunnaki would come and go, bringing or taking the gold they mined. And so, across ages, humanity may have seen their return, ships blazing like stars, beings descending like gods, only to vanish again. If this is true, how would the Sumerians have recorded such events? They carved tablets in cuneiform, recording trade, law, and myth. If they saw radiant vessels in the sky, they would not have called them machines. They would have seen them as divine, clothed in brilliance, and woven them into their hymns. Indeed, in poems like the hymn to Enlil, the god is described as advancing like a storm, radiance filling heaven and earth. In the descent of Inanna, the goddess is said to come clothed in light, wrapped in divine splendor. To us, these are metaphors. To them, perhaps they were memories of encounters too strange to describe directly. In Sumerian art, gods are shown towering over humans, holding staffs or sacred objects, dressed in robes unlike any mortal. If they had seen beings from beyond, would they not have portrayed them in the same way? Larger, more imposing, carrying devices they could not understand, which to them became scepters or emblems of power. And if they saw ships in the sky, how would they draw them? Likely as symbols of stars, chariots, or radiant discs, holy, not mechanical. To us, they would be machines. To them, they were omens. One artifact in particular has fueled endless debate. The so-called VA243 seal, kept in Berlin, shows figures believed to be Mesopotamian gods, but in the sky above them is a cluster of orbs surrounding a central disk. Some argue it is simply decoration or symbolic stars. Others insist it is a map of the solar system, 11 planets orbiting the sun, with one more beyond, the planet Nibiru. To archaeologists, this is over-interpretation. To believers, it is evidence that the Sumerians knew secrets they could not have learned alone. If the Anunnaki truly came, the question remains, why did they leave? Some say it was simple. After gathering enough gold, their mission was complete, their atmosphere restored. Others suggest darker reasons, conflicts among the Anunnaki themselves, wars fought with weapons of terrifying power. In myth and scripture, echoes of these battles appear. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, fire from the heavens, cities reduced to ash. Some claim these were not divine punishments, but memories of ancient weapons, nuclear in nature, unleashed in a struggle for supremacy among the very gods. The stories speak of Enlil, stern and pragmatic, who refused to warn mankind of the coming flood, and Enki, compassionate, who whispered the truth to a chosen man, ensuring humanity's survival. Of Marduk, ambitious and defiant, who sought to rule even above the other gods. And of Anu, the patriarch, who ruled from Nibiru itself. To believers, these are not myths of gods, but the history of a family of rulers, powerful beings whose rivalries shaped the fate of our world. When their conflicts escalated, the theory says the Anunnaki unleashed devastation. Weapons of fire turned fertile lands to wasteland. Winds of death, interpreted as radiation, swept across Mesopotamia. Terrified even of their own actions, the gods withdrew. Anu commanded his sons to leave the earth behind, and so began the Exodus. Some returned to Nibiru, others perhaps remained in hiding. Still others may have scattered across the solar system, leaving bases on the moon or even on Mars. And what of Nibiru itself? The planet described in myth is said to be vast, with a dense, metal-rich atmosphere. To live there, ships had to master anti-gravity and immense pressures. Its orbit carried it far from the warmth of the sun, through darkness and cold, and then back again. Some theorists imagine its cities, domes of shining metal shielding inhabitants from storms, colossal temples rising in its capital, laboratories where genetic experiments gave rise to humankind. Outside, its deserts stretched beneath red skies swept by violent winds. Inside, a hierarchy of rulers and scientists led by Anu, the king. If the Anunnaki returned there, what became of them? Did they thrive, restoring their world with the gold they mined from ours? Or did their civilization decline, consumed by its own ambitions? Some believe they may still be alive, their lifespans measured not in centuries but in tens of thousands of years. If so, the 4,000 years since their departure is barely a moment to them. Could they still be watching, waiting, observing the civilization they once shaped? The mystery of the Anunnaki deepens when we ask the most unsettling question: who created them? If, as some claim, they came to Earth nearly 500,000 years ago, shaped our species through genetic manipulation and guided civilizations, then what was their own origin? Were they the product of natural evolution on Nibiru, just as we are on Earth? Or were they themselves the creation of an even older intelligence, one that set into motion a chain of civilizations, each giving rise to another? One possibility is simple. On Nibiru, life began as it did on Earth. Primitive forms emerged, evolved across millions of years, and culminated in intelligent beings who mastered technology and space travel. Another more mysterious idea suggests that the Anunnaki were designed. Perhaps they were created by an ancient race far older than them, a race that spread life across the cosmos in a process known as directed panspermia. If so, the Anunnaki might have been only one link in an endless chain of creation, each civilization passing on knowledge, each one perhaps wondering about its own makers. And at the end of this chain, perhaps, lies a supreme source, what some would call God. If they were real, then why have they not returned? If Nibiru's orbit brings it close to Earth every 3,600 years, then logically, we should have seen them again. Some argue they did return, but chose not to interfere. Others believe they may observe us from afar, following something akin to what scientists call the zoo hypothesis, leaving us to grow on our own without constant interference. Perhaps their purpose was never to remain, but to give humanity its beginning and then step away. Another darker possibility is that they could not return at all. If the Anunnaki truly wielded weapons of mass destruction, if they fought wars among themselves that scarred the Earth, then perhaps their civilization collapsed under its own weight. They may have destroyed themselves long ago. Or, if their lifespans truly stretch across tens of thousands of years, perhaps they still exist, thriving at a scale beyond our comprehension, focusing on new worlds and greater achievements. By now, they might wield the energy of stars themselves, making contact with us irrelevant. But one question lingers. If they were so advanced, why would they need us at all? Why create humans to labour in mines when they could have built machines? Why turn early hominids into a workforce rather than constructing tools that could do the same? The contradiction is striking, yet history gives us examples of civilizations that excelled in some areas but lagged in others. The Maya charted the skies with extraordinary precision, but never developed advanced metallurgy. The Egyptians built massive monuments, but did not invent the wheel until much later. Progress is rarely equal in all directions. Perhaps the Anunnaki mastered space travel and genetics, but did not develop robotics in the way we imagine. For them, altering local life forms into workers might have been easier than building machines from scratch. Creating humans adapted to Earth's environment could have been more efficient than transporting equipment from another world. And if their goal was not only labour, but reverence, then making humans their servants reinforced their divine status. For a god to be worshipped, it must be seen. Machines could not kneel, pray, or build temples. Humans could. From these ideas arises the boldest of claims that the gods of myth were never gods at all, but flesh and blood beings whose technology was mistaken for miracles. In their stories, ships descend wrapped in fire, gods radiate with brilliance, and tools of power resemble weapons of lightning. To ancient eyes, these were wonders. To modern eyes, they sound like machines. But what of their home itself, Nibiru? Could such a planet really exist? In recent years, astronomers have spoken of a Planet X, a large, unseen world that might orbit far beyond Neptune. The strange tilts of icy objects in the Kuiper belt suggest something massive is tugging at them. A planet perhaps 10 times the mass of Earth, circling the Sun on a path so vast it would take thousands of years to complete one orbit. To some, this sounds like Nibiru, but the details do not fit. Planet X, if real, would take 10 to 20,000 years to circle the Sun, not 3,600, and its orbit would not bring it close enough to Earth to influence history. Other possibilities arise. Could Nibiru be a rogue planet, a world drifting freely through space, unbound to any star, appearing only when its path crosses near ours? If so, its presence would be rare and fleeting, and life upon it would struggle to survive in the cold emptiness of the dark. Unless, of course, its inhabitants had long ago reshaped it. Some suggest Nibiru might not be a natural planet at all, but a colossal construct, a world engineered by the Anunnaki themselves, a megastructure built to travel the galaxy, sustaining its people as it drifted among the stars. The theory does not stop there. Some believe the Anunnaki established bases before ever coming to Earth. The moon, some say, was one such base, a convenient staging ground. Others argue the moon itself is not natural, but an artificial satellite placed in orbit to stabilise Earth and prepare it for life. Strange towers, domes and spires have been claimed in lunar photographs, though scientists explain them as shadows, tricks of light or geological formations. Even lava tubes are reinterpreted by some as ancient tunnels or entrances to hidden bases. Mars too enters the story. With its lower gravity and strategic location, it may have served as another Anunnaki outpost. Photographs from the Viking missions showed formations that looked like pyramids, even a colossal face staring toward the heavens. Later, sharper images revealed them as natural shapes carved by wind and erosion. But to some, the idea remains alive, that Mars once bore the mark of an intelligence far older than us. As these connections are drawn, the line between ancient myths and modern mysteries grows thin. For when we compare the descriptions of glowing beings, radiant chariots, and otherworldly teachers from long ago with modern reports of UFOs, the similarities are striking, from the Inuit tales of luminous figures to the Native American star people, from Amazonian visitors in shining suits to Irish gods wrapped in radiance. The language may differ, but the core image remains the same. Beings descend from the sky. They teach, they guide, and then they vanish. Even in modern times, encounters echo the same themes. In 1980, In Rendlesham Forest in the United Kingdom, soldiers reported lights among the trees, a metallic craft marked with strange symbols, and a silent ascent into the night sky. In 1964, in New Mexico, a police officer described a glowing egg-shaped craft and two beings standing nearby. In 1997, thousands in Phoenix, Arizona, witnessed a formation of lights arranged in a V, gliding silently above the city. Ancient myths, modern sightings. Humanoid figures in shining suits, luminous crafts that rise without sound, symbols written upon their hulls. The parallels are undeniable. Are we witnessing the same phenomenon, seen through different ages? In ancient times they were gods. Today we call them extraterrestrials. The mystery may be the same. Across the ruins of ancient civilizations, strange patterns begin to emerge. Symbols, objects and designs that appear in cultures separated by oceans and centuries. Could this be coincidence? Or could it be evidence of a forgotten contact, preserved in stone and story? One example lies in the images carved into Mesopotamian reliefs more than 3,000 years ago. Figures with the bodies of men and the heads of eagles stand tall, protective spirits called Apkallu. In their hands they hold a curious object, a small bucket or container known as a bandudu. Its purpose is unknown. Some say it held sacred water for purification rituals. Yet the object appears again and again, carried by figures who are half human, half divine. Thousands of miles away in Mesoamerica, a culture that flourished nearly 2,500 years ago carved images that seem strangely familiar. A high-ranking figure sits upon a serpent or supernatural beast, and in his hand he too holds a small basket, strikingly similar to the Mesopotamian bandudu. Even older, at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a site built some 12,000 years ago, similar objects are carved upon massive stone pillars. How could the same motif appear in places so far apart? Archaeologists explain it as cultural convergence. People across the world needed containers to hold offerings, water, or ritual substances. It is no surprise, they argue, that similar designs appear independently. But others suggest something more. Perhaps these were not containers at all, but tools, technological artifacts passed down from a lost civilization, or shared by visitors from beyond. Another mystery lies in the practice of cranial deformation. Across the world, from the Maya in Central America to the Inca in South America, from the Chinook of North America to cultures in the Caucasus and Eastern Europe, people bound the heads of infants to produce elongated skulls. In Egypt, the royal family of Akhenaten was often depicted with strikingly elongated heads, though historians say this was an artistic style, symbolizing divinity. Why would so many societies, unconnected by geography, seek to alter the human form in the same way? To some, it was an attempt to imitate the appearance of their gods, gods who may not have been human at all. The similarities extend beyond ritual. Across continents, ancient people built monumental pyramids. In Mesopotamia, stepped ziggurats rose 4,000 years ago. In Egypt, the Great Pyramids towered over the desert, aligned with celestial bodies. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and Teotihuacan built step pyramids, some aligned with constellations like the Pleiades. In China, emperors were buried beneath pyramid-shaped mounds. In the Andes, adobe platforms rose centuries before Egypt's monuments. Even in Southeast Asia, at Borobudur in Indonesia and Kokir in Cambodia, step pyramid structures appeared. Why pyramids everywhere? The conventional answer is practicality. Without steel or cranes, ancient builders found the pyramid to be the most stable way to build tall structures. Its shape also symbolized the sacred mountain, a bridge between earth and sky. But to others, the pyramid represents something else. A universal design, spread by a mother culture now forgotten, or perhaps by visitors who guided humanity to build in their image. If such visitors came, what would their encounters have looked like? For a possible clue, we need not look to the distant past, but to the 20th century. In the remote islands of Melanesia during World War II, villagers witnessed warships, airplanes, and vast supplies brought by American and Japanese forces. To the islanders, these technologies were incomprehensible, appearing as if from the realm of gods. When the war ended and the soldiers departed, the cargo ceased. The islanders, desperate for its return, began rituals. They built straw airplanes, marched in imitation uniforms, and lit torches in patterns resembling runway lights. They believed that by mimicking what they had seen, the gods would once again deliver their gifts. Anthropologists call this a cargo cult. To modern eyes, it is a lesson in perspective. A technologically advanced culture encountered a less advanced one, and in that meeting, the less advanced people interpreted technology as divinity. If this could happen in the 20th century, is it so hard to imagine it happening in the ancient world? If strangers descended in radiant ships carrying tools of power, would early humanity not have seen gods? And so we return to the central question. Were the gods of myth real beings who walked among our ancestors? Or were they stories born from imagination, ways to explain the unknown? Archaeology insists on the latter. There is no trace of technology out of place for its time. No alloys unknown to the ancients. No sudden leaps that cannot be explained by human progress. Instead, the record shows gradual growth, agriculture spreading, metallurgy developing, ideas passing from culture to culture through trade and migration. Even the Anunnaki, as described by modern theorists, are absent from the original texts. The Sumerians wrote of gods shaping mankind, but not of mining gold to repair a planetary atmosphere. Those details belong to later reinterpretations. When claims are tested, the evidence often fades. The supposed traces of radiation at Mohenjo-Daro, said to prove an ancient nuclear war, have not been confirmed. No spaceship parts have ever been unearthed in Mesopotamia. And yet the fascination remains, for the stories themselves are compelling. The myths are vivid, filled with detail too strange to ignore, and the similarities across cultures raise questions that linger. If Carl Sagan had been asked, he would have warned us to be cautious. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Until such evidence is found, the stories must remain what they are, legends, not proof. But he also would have reminded us of something else, that to dismiss a question without exploring it is to stop seeking, and to stop seeking is to stop learning. So perhaps the answer does not lie in accepting or rejecting the myths outright. Perhaps the value lies in the search itself, in listening to the voices of our ancestors, in asking why they told these stories, and in wondering whether they saw something we have forgotten, whether the shining beings they described were gods, spirits, or visitors from among the stars. Their memory shaped civilization. And that memory remains with us still. When we look at the monuments of the past, we see more than stone and mortar. We see ambition, belief, and mystery. We see the legacy of civilizations that tried to bridge the gap between the human and the divine. And within those stories, the question lingers: was there ever contact with something beyond this world? For many who believe in the ancient astronaut theory, the key lies in the Anunnaki. These beings, they say, were not gods of myth, but travelers from a distant planet. They came to Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, brought knowledge and order, and then vanished. Their departure, according to some accounts, was not peaceful. Texts and traditions hint at conflict among the gods themselves. Rivalries between Enlil and Enki, disputes over mankind's fate, and the ambitions of Marduk led to divisions within their ranks. Some myths tell of wars that devastated regions, battles fought with weapons so destructive that the land itself withered. Cities would turn to ash, and winds of poison swept across the plains. To later generations, these events were remembered as divine judgment. To modern theorists, they may be echoes of catastrophic weapons far beyond the capacity of the time. One passage from Genesis tells of Sodom and Gomorrah, cities destroyed by fire and brimstone raining from the heavens. The land was left barren, smoke rising like the destruction of a furnace. To believers, this is not allegory but memory, an account of a terrible strike, possibly even a nuclear blast, unleashed by beings who had lost control of their own power. The theory continues. Faced with the horror of what they had done, the Anunnaki chose to withdraw. Anu, the supreme ruler, commanded his sons to leave Earth. The mission that once united them had collapsed into conflict, and so, one by one, they departed. Some returned to Nibiru, others scattered. Some, like Enki, may have remained, remembered in later myths, as wise teachers who guided humanity even after the gods had vanished. If Nibiru was real, what kind of world was it? The descriptions paint a planet of extremes, a place with a thick, metal-rich atmosphere, shielded by domes of reflective metal that protected its cities from cosmic radiation. Colossal temples rose in its capital, adorned with carvings and statues. Around them stood scientific centers where experiments in genetics may have taken place. Artificial habitats preserved plants and animals. Lakes provided water. Beyond the domes stretched deserts of redstone, swept by violent winds, shaped by the planet's long elliptical orbit around the sun. Life on Nibiru, if it existed, would not have been easy. Its gravity would have been stronger than Earth's, its atmosphere harsher. The beings who thrived there must have adapted over millennia, their bodies shaped by pressures we can only imagine. To master space travel under such conditions would require extraordinary technology. Anti-gravity propulsion, nuclear power, energy drawn from forces we do not yet understand. Some say Nibiru's civilization was ancient beyond measure, hundreds of thousands, even millions of years old. If so, their knowledge would have surpassed ours by a scale we cannot comprehend. To build ships, to cross interstellar distances, to alter the DNA of another species, such achievements would suggest mastery far beyond our own. And yet, even the most advanced civilizations can fall victim to ambition, rivalry, and destruction. The stories of Enki, Enlil, and Marduk hint at a family torn apart by jealousy and pride. Enlil, the commander, stern and unyielding. Enki, the scientist, compassionate toward mankind. Marduk, ambitious, demanding power above all. Their struggles shaped the myths of Babylon, Sumer, and later traditions. Perhaps they were remembered as gods because no other word existed for beings of such power. Perhaps their legacy endures in scripture, myth, and memory. If they truly left, then what remains of them now? Some theorists suggest they may still be alive. If their lifespans stretch into tens of thousands of years, then the 4 millennia since their departure is but a brief interlude. Perhaps Anu, the patriarch, still rules from Nibiru. Perhaps Enki, the creator of humanity, continues to guide from the shadows. Or perhaps they have turned their gaze elsewhere, leaving Earth to grow on its own. And yet questions remain. Why would such beings rely on human labor if they were so advanced? Why not use machines? Why not build tools to mine the gold they sought? One answer is that even the greatest civilizations focus their resources unevenly. Just as the Maya mastered astronomy but not metallurgy, the Anunnaki may have excelled in space travel and genetics, but not in robotics. For them, it may have been easier to modify local species into workers than to transport vast machines across the stars. Another possibility is symbolic. If their goal was to be revered as gods, then creating humans as servants reinforced their divine image. Machines could not worship, but humans could kneel. The debates continue. Some point to astronomy, searching for evidence of Nibiru. Theories of a hidden planet X persist. Astronomers note the strange alignment of objects beyond Neptune, suggesting something massive is tugging at them. A planet 10 times the size of Earth, orbiting far beyond Pluto, invisible to the naked eye. Could this be Nibiru? If so, its orbit would be tens of thousands of years, not 3,600. And no evidence suggests it passes near Earth. Others propose Nibiru is a rogue planet, wandering between stars, appearing only briefly before vanishing into the dark. Still others imagine it not as a natural world at all, but as an engineered megastructure, a vast ark built to sustain life as it travelled endlessly through space. The moon too becomes part of the theory. Some claim it served as an Anunnaki base, a staging ground for their missions on Earth. Others go further, suggesting the moon itself may not be natural, but placed in orbit deliberately to stabilise Earth. Lunar photographs have been examined for signs of towers, domes, or artificial structures, though scientists dismiss them as tricks of light or natural geology. The debate persists. Mars, with its barren surface and haunting landscapes, also enters the story. Its lower gravity and proximity to Earth would make it a convenient outpost. Photographs of the so-called Face on Mars and pyramid-like formations have fueled speculation, though later images revealed them as natural features. Still, the possibility lingers in the imagination that Mars once bore the footprints of beings far older than humankind. As we compare ancient myths to modern sightings, the parallels grow. Beings of light, radiant ships, strange symbols, knowledge imparted to humanity. Myths speak of gods in glowing robes descending in fire and brilliance. Modern witnesses describe crafts of light, beings in metallic suits, eyes large and luminous. The language differs, but the core image remains unchanged. Are these the same encounters seen through different ages? In one era, they were gods. In another, they are called extraterrestrials. The mystery remains the same. Humanity has always looked to the skies and wondered if we are alone. And perhaps, long ago, we were given an answer, one we still struggle to understand. The deeper we search, the more we see how myths of gods and visitors blur with the mysteries of the cosmos. From the sands of Mesopotamia to the mountains of Peru, from the jungles of the Amazon to the frozen tundra of the Arctic, the stories converge. Beings descend from the sky. They teach, they guide, they vanish. Were they imagined? Or were they part of a forgotten chapter of human history? The idea that gods might have been extraterrestrial visitors is bold, but it has captured imaginations for generations. Still, archaeologists remind us that myths do not prove history. They argue that no object has ever been found that cannot be explained by the time it came from. Tools, metals, and monuments all show gradual development. Civilizations rose step by step, not in sudden leaps that demand intervention. For many scholars, the stories of the Anunnaki, the Vimanas, and the Nommo are cultural expressions, not eyewitness accounts, and yet some details are hard to ignore. Ancient texts describe radiant chariots, glowing vessels, beings who hovered above the ground, and knowledge far beyond their time. Similar motifs appear in distant cultures. Even their artwork repeats symbols that reappear across continents. Skeptics explain this as coincidence or parallel invention. Believers see it as evidence of contact, fragments of a truth that slipped into myth. Consider again the pyramids. In Egypt, they rose as tombs aligned with the stars. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats served as stairways to the heavens. In Mesoamerica, pyramids aligned with celestial cycles. In China, massive burial mounds shaped as pyramids still stand. In the Andes, pyramids of adobe predate many others. Across the world, societies that never met chose the same form. Was it because the pyramid is stable, practical, and symbolic? Or was it because they were guided? Or think of the elongated skulls. Why would cultures across the world bind their infants' heads to mimic a shape so unnatural? Was it fashion, status, or something more? Were they trying to resemble the beings they once saw, beings remembered as gods with tall bodies and long heads? Some go even further. They claim that the very reason humans long to reach the stars is because we are not entirely of this world, that our origins are not purely earthly, but seeded, guided, altered by others. In this view, the Anunnaki are not just part of our past, they are part of our identity. We are their legacy. But here lies the tension. There is no physical proof. The cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia tell of gods and kings, but not of spacecraft. The hymns of Inanna speak of divine radiance, but not of machines. The pyramids contain no alien metals. The moon holds no visible bases. Mars reveals only rock and dust. For every claim, there is a counter. For every vision, there is a rational explanation. And yet the mystery endures. Because myths are powerful. They preserve memory. They shape identity. And sometimes they whisper truths we do not fully understand. Take the cargo cults of the 20th century. Islanders mistook airplanes for divine birds and soldiers for gods. They built shrines of straw, waiting for the return of cargo that never came. To us, the mistake is obvious, but to them, it was the only explanation. If such a misunderstanding could happen in modern times, why not in the distant past? If radiant ships descended thousands of years ago, what words could ancient people have used? God, angel, teacher, spirit. They had no vocabulary for spacecraft, for astronauts, for technology. They described what they saw in the only language they knew, myth. So what do we make of it? Some say the Anunnaki never existed, that Nibiru is a fantasy. They argue that every story can be explained by human creativity, by cultural exchange, by the slow march of progress. Others insist the myths are too consistent to ignore, that across the world humanity remembers something real. Perhaps not exactly as the stories tell it, but real nonetheless. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Perhaps no beings from Nibiru mined gold in Mesopotamia. Perhaps no luminous chariots landed in the Arctic. But perhaps our ancestors did see things they could not explain. Meteors blazing in the sky, comets glowing with fire, strangers arriving from distant lands with new knowledge. Over generations, such events could become legends of gods descending, beings teaching, ships soaring, or perhaps, just perhaps, the stories are closer to truth than we think. Perhaps humanity was not alone in its earliest days. Perhaps we were visited, shaped, guided, and then left to grow on our own. If so, then the question is not whether they came, but whether they will return. Astronomy has found no proof of Nibiru. No telescope has seen a world with a 3,600-year orbit crossing near Earth. No probe has found traces of alien technology on the Moon or Mars, but the search continues. Scientists still debate the existence of a hidden Planet X. Astronomers still uncover strange alignments in the outer solar system. Every discovery brings more questions. The mystery remains unresolved. Are we alone? Or are the myths of gods, angels, and star teachers echoes of something real? The evidence may not yet exist. The proof may still lie buried, waiting to be uncovered. Until then, we are left with stories that shaped civilizations, inspired monuments, and still stir our imagination today. In the end, whether gods or visitors, myth or memory, these beings represent humanity's oldest dream, that we are not alone, that knowledge can be given from the stars, that the heavens hold not only mystery, but answers. And that dream continues as we search the skies, as we build our own machines to fly among the stars, as we ask the same question our ancestors once asked: who came before us, and will they come again? When we gather all these stories together across continents and centuries, one truth becomes clear. Humanity has always looked to the heavens for answers. Whether it was the Sumerians writing of the Anunnaki, the Egyptians praising Thoth and Osiris, the Hindus describing Vimanas, the Dogon recalling the Nommo, or the Native Americans speaking of star people, the pattern is the same. Beings from the sky, radiant and powerful, come down, give knowledge, and then depart. Archaeologists and historians argue that such stories are universal because human imagination is universal. We all see the same stars, we all ask the same questions, we all build myths to explain what we cannot understand. From this perspective, the gods were not visitors but reflections of ourselves, our fears, our hopes, our creativity. But for others, these similarities are too strong to be dismissed as coincidence. They believe the myths are fragments of memory distorted by time but rooted in reality. Ancient people may not have understood what they saw, but they recorded it the only way they could. They described radiant ships as chariots of fire. They saw technology as miracles. They called travelers from beyond the sky gods. This is why the debate over the Anunnaki remains alive. The idea of Nibiru, the planet that cycles through the solar system every 3,600 years, has no proof in astronomy. No telescope has found it. Yet the theory persists, fueled by myths and speculation. For some, the absence of evidence is not proof of absence. They argue we may be looking in the wrong place, or that such a planet, if it exists, lies hidden in the vastness of space. The fascination grows when we look at how myths describe the gods' actions. The Sumerian tablets speak of Enlil, who saw mankind as unruly and chose not to save them from the flood, and Enki, who pitied humanity and ensured their survival. These are not the actions of abstract deities, but of beings with emotions, rivalries, and choices. They read like the struggles of a family, a dynasty, not unlike human rulers. If they were imagined, why would their stories be so human? And if they were real, perhaps they were not so different from us, after all. We also see hints of catastrophic events woven into these tales. The destruction of cities, floods that wiped out civilizations, battles fought with weapons of fire, were these only allegories of natural disasters and wars? Or were they memories of something greater, encounters with powers far beyond what early humans could comprehend? In the modern age, we still see echoes. The 20th century brought sightings of crafts of light, beings in metallic suits, symbols etched on hulls, silent vessels that rise and vanish. To some, these are illusions or misunderstandings. To others, they are proof that the same visitors who came in antiquity are still here, watching. Yet the question remains unanswered. Why, if they exist, would they not make themselves known? Some suggest the reason is the same as it has always been: to guide without dominating, to give knowledge without erasing independence, to watch from a distance, ensuring that we walk on our own. If this is true, then perhaps humanity has already passed the stage when intervention was necessary. Perhaps we are meant to continue alone until the day we are ready to meet them as equals. Others believe the truth is darker, that the Anunnaki may have destroyed themselves long ago, consumed by their own conflicts, that the wars described in myth were not allegories, but reality, and the beings who once ruled as gods are gone forever. If so, humanity may be the last surviving trace of their legacy, a species they created, left behind, and abandoned. But there is one more possibility: that the Anunnaki, or whatever name we give them, are still alive. Not if their lifespans truly stretch across tens of thousands of years, then 4 millennia since their departure is nothing to them. They may still be on Nibiru, or on stations orbiting distant stars, or travelling the galaxy in colossal vessels. They may have grown so advanced that our world is no longer of interest. Perhaps they now wield the energy of suns, shaping galaxies, creating life on new worlds, leaving ours as a completed chapter. And still, the myths remain. The hymns of Sumer, the legends of Ireland, the stories of the Amazon, the sacred paintings of Australia, the tales of North America. They remind us of something humanity has always known: that the sky holds secrets, that the stars may not be empty, and that knowledge is never given without a price. As we search for planets beyond our own, as telescopes scan the heavens and probes explore the solar system, we are still following the same path our ancestors began. We still look upward and wonder who came before us. We still ask whether we are alone. And in the silence of the cosmos, we still listen for an answer. Perhaps one day we will find evidence, physical, undeniable, and clear. A fragment of metal, not of this earth. A signal from the stars, a discovery on Mars or the moon that proves someone was there before us. Until then, we have only the stories. Stories written in stone, passed down in song, painted on walls, whispered in myth. They may not be proof, but they are powerful. They remind us that humanity has always been curious, always searching, always reaching beyond itself. Whether the Anunnaki were real or imagined, whether Nibiru exists or not, the myths inspire us to keep looking, to keep questioning, to keep reaching for the stars. And perhaps that is their greatest gift. Not the gold, not the knowledge, not even the creation of mankind, but the spark they left behind, the desire to seek, to learn, to dream of the infinite. The story of the Anunnaki, of Nibiru, of gods who may have been travellers from the stars, is more than a tale of the past. It is also a reflection of who we are today. Because when we look back at these myths, we are not only searching for their truth, we are also asking about our own place in the universe. For some, the myths are cautionary. They warn us of the dangers of ambition, rivalry, and uncontrolled power. They tell of wars among gods that scarred the earth, of floods that wiped out civilizations, of weapons that turned fertile lands into deserts. Whether literal or symbolic, the message is the same. Too much power, used recklessly, leads to destruction. These stories may be reminders from our ancestors to tread carefully, to respect knowledge, and to use it wisely. For others, the myths are inspiration. They show us that humanity has always dreamed of the stars. The gods descended from the heavens bearing light and wisdom. The star people came to guide. The Wangina, painted on rocks, remind us of luminous beings with eyes like the night sky. The Dogon remembered fish-like teachers who brought order. Each story is a testament to the human imagination, and perhaps to memories of something real. Even if the Anunnaki never existed, the impact of the idea is undeniable. Because the ancient astronaut theory challenges us to look at history differently. It asks us to imagine that our world is part of a much greater story, that we are not the first to dream of the stars, and that perhaps others have walked this path before us. It is this idea that fuels modern science as well. Every probe sent into space, every telescope turned to the sky, every signal searched for in the noise of the cosmos is part of the same quest. We want to know if we are alone. We want to know if others have been here. And we want to know if they might come again. Today, astronomers have already found thousands of exoplanets circling distant stars. Some are Earth-like, rocky, within the habitable zone. Others are gas giants with moons that may harbour oceans. The possibilities are endless. Each discovery makes the ancient stories feel less impossible. If life can exist elsewhere, then contact is not a fantasy. It is only a matter of when and how. But the Anunnaki theory also raises deeper questions. If we were created, altered, or guided by beings from another world, what does that mean for our identity? Are we truly independent, or are we part of someone else's experiment? Did we rise by our own effort, or were we shaped by hands not of this earth? And if that is so, what happens when the creators return? Would they see us as equals or still as servants? Religion, myth, and science converge on these questions. Ancient texts describe gods descending in glory. Modern science speaks of evolution and the long struggle for survival. The ancient astronaut theory stands in between, suggesting that both may hold fragments of truth, that life evolved on Earth, but that at some point it was touched, accelerated, changed by an encounter we no longer remember clearly. Skeptics remind us that without evidence, such ideas remain speculation. They warn against replacing one mythology with another. They say the tablets of Mesopotamia tell us of gods, but not of astronauts. They say the pyramids are monuments of human effort, not alien engineering. They say the myths of the world are poetry, not history. But believers reply that absence of proof is not proof of absence, that what we call myth may yet preserve memory, that what we dismiss as imagination may hold seeds of truth. They argue that history is full of forgotten chapters, and that one day perhaps we will uncover the evidence we seek. Until then, we are left with the stories, and the stories continue to inspire. They inspire us to question what we know. They inspire us to look beyond Earth. They inspire us to imagine futures where humanity reaches the stars, not as servants of gods, but as explorers in our own right. The legacy of the Anunnaki, real or not, is that they remind us of our potential. If beings once came here, if they once guided humanity, then perhaps we too can become the guides of others. Perhaps one day, far into the future, our descendants will travel to distant worlds shaping life as we were shaped. Perhaps the cycle will continue endlessly across the cosmos. And maybe that is the true lesson of these myths. Not that gods once walked among us, but that one day we may become as gods ourselves. Not because of divine right, but because of knowledge, exploration, and the endless human desire to understand. As we look to the sky tonight, the stars shine as they did for the Sumerians, for the Egyptians, for the Maya, for the Dogon, for every culture that ever told these stories. They are distant, silent, mysterious. But they also call to us. They whisper of the infinite, of journeys yet to come, of questions yet to be answered. Perhaps the gods of the stars were real. Perhaps they were myth. Perhaps they were both. But their greatest gift may not have been the knowledge they gave or the power they wielded. Their greatest gift may have been the spark of wonder, the fire of curiosity, the dream of the stars, a dream that still burns in us as bright as it did in the first humans who looked upward and wondered who or what might dwell beyond the sky. As we draw closer to the end of this long journey, one truth stands out. Humanity has always searched for connection with the heavens. The myths of the Anunnaki and the legends of star gods may or may not be literal, but their power is undeniable. They have shaped religions, guided civilizations, and stirred imaginations for thousands of years. When we read of Enlil, stern and commanding, or of Enki, compassionate and rebellious, we see echoes of human rulers, kings, and fathers. When we hear of Marduk rising against his elders, demanding the throne, we are reminded of ambition and rivalry that has shaped history again and again. These stories, even if they were only allegories, gave order to the chaos of human life. They explained floods, droughts, victories, and disasters as the work of beings greater than ourselves. And if they were not allegories, if they were memories, then they may record encounters with powers far beyond what early humanity could describe. The flood itself remains one of the strongest motifs. From Mesopotamia to the Bible, from India to the Americas, cultures remember a great deluge that wiped out almost all life. Archaeologists explain these tales as reflections of real floods, rising seas at the end of the Ice Age, river catastrophes, natural disasters. But for those who believe in the Anunnaki, the flood was deliberate. It was ordered by Enlil to cleanse the earth, while Enki ensured survival by warning a chosen man. A conflict between gods, or perhaps between visitors, determined the fate of humankind. Such stories remind us of our fragility. Whether gods or natural forces, humanity has always lived at the mercy of events far greater than itself. Storms, earthquakes, floods, and wars have ended civilizations before. To the ancients, these were the works of gods. To us, they are the movements of nature, but the sense of awe remains unchanged. If the Anunnaki truly came, then the question we must ask is not only why they left, but what they left behind. Did they leave only myths, carved into tablets and whispered in legend? Or did they leave more, knowledge hidden in symbols, technologies buried beneath the earth, or even bloodlines still carried in humanity today? Some claim that royal families, priestly classes, and rulers of old traced their authority not to men, but to gods. Kings ruled by divine right. Pharaohs were children of Ra. Sumerian kings claimed descent from Anu. Was this only ideology, or was it memory? Geneticists search our DNA for clues. The human genome is vast, its history complex, shaped by countless mutations, migrations, and adaptations. To some, it holds mysteries not yet explained. Sudden leaps in brain capacity, rapid development of language, the spark of consciousness. Did these arise naturally? Or was something added, altered, refined? For now, the answers remain hidden in the code of life itself. What we do know is this: humanity is unique. No other species on Earth has built monuments, written symphonies, or reached for the stars. We are storytellers, engineers, dreamers. We wonder not only how to survive, but what lies beyond survival. And perhaps that is the greatest legacy of all, whether given by gods, by visitors, or by the universe itself. Skeptics remind us that there is no evidence for Nibiru. No planet has been found with a 3,600-year orbit. No alien artifacts lie in museums. No unearthly metals or machines have been uncovered. To them, the Anunnaki are symbols, not reality. But believers counter that absence of evidence does not erase the consistency of the stories, that myths are not meaningless, but memory transformed by time. Between these two positions lies a space of wonder, a space where imagination thrives, where science and myth meet, where the possibility of contact keeps us searching the stars. Even if the Anunnaki never came, the belief that they did pushes us to explore. It inspires us to question what we know and to ask what we do not. As telescopes grow more powerful and probes journey farther, we are closer than ever to finding other worlds like our own. Already, thousands of exoplanets have been discovered. Some are rocky, some watery, some larger than Earth. The galaxy is filled with potential homes for life. The odds that we are alone shrink with every discovery. And if life is common, then intelligent life may also be common. If so, then the stories of the Anunnaki may not be fantasy, but foreshadowing. Not proof of what has happened, but prophecy of what will happen again. Imagine what our ancestors would think if they could see us now. Machines flying through the air, voices carried across oceans in an instant, probes on Mars, telescopes peering to the edge of the universe. To them, we would seem like gods. Perhaps that is the real answer. Every civilization given time becomes the gods of the next. Every culture that rises inspires myths in those who come after. Perhaps the Anunnaki, real or imagined, are not only our past, but also our future, because one day humanity will leave Earth. One day we will travel to other worlds, carrying with us the memory of who we are. And when we meet others, whether they are primitive or advanced, they will remember us in their own myths. They will call us gods, angels, or star people. They will carve our images on their walls, sing songs of our arrival, and wonder why we came and where we went. In that moment, the cycle will be complete. We will become what we once believed in. Until that day, we search. We listen for signals. We build rockets. We dream of Mars. We scan the skies for planets that could harbor life. And in every effort, we echo the same desire our ancestors had when they wrote of Enki and Enlil, of Osiris and Thoth, of the Nommo, of the star people, the desire to know that we are not alone. Perhaps the Anunnaki were real, perhaps they were myth, perhaps they were both. But either way, they have given us something priceless, the drive to seek beyond ourselves. And that drive, more than any gift of knowledge or power, may be what leads us to the stars.